Hey y'all, you're here at Web3 Weekly Live. Hey Harold, I usually dance. It's my thing. So y'all, thank you for coming today on Web3 Weekly Live. This is our last episode for the season, and I welcome Harold. Harold, how do you say your last name? I forgot to ask you that.
Eytan.
Is it Eytan? Okay, Eytan. I think that's what I would have gone with, but you just literally never know. So just always a reminder, y'all, and I'm going to say it early on because last time I forgot to. You have the ability to comment, and that's how we pay attention and we can address the questions that you have, because the whole point of this is for us to be learning more about Web3, what is possible, how we can begin participating in Web3, because it's all going to happen eventually. So you might as well be an early adopter. And so, Harold, tell us a little bit more about yourself. You're the CEO of Particle. So is it Particle or Particle Collection?
Particle is the business, and Particle is an ecosystem, let's call it that. And the Particle Collection is our fine art collection.
I get it. You're
So
saying
I'll
it's
explain
like
a little more.
Particles
I'll give
Collection.
you in the.
No, you can't tell us more first. You have to tell us
Oh,
about you more first.
about me.
Because
So,
we want to know why people end up in Web3.
Yeah, so I'm from Switzerland, but I live in the UK, in London. I came here for university. I started working, and essentially my career was always in launching new businesses. I started off at Rocket Internet, which is they call themselves a startup incubator, but really what they are is like a copycat factory. So they take business models that work in the US, replicate them in Europe and emerging markets. And the idea really is, everyone can have an idea, but execution is key, especially when you're moving a business model into other geographies, and you have to take into account all the nuances of that, etc. So it was really launch idea to launch in 90 days is kind of where it was at. And I did that for some years. Then I moved to kind of a more entrepreneurial journey on my own, let's say, and mostly in the direct-to-consumer subscription businesses. So you might know Daily Harvest, the smoothie subscription. We did something similar over in the UK.
Interesting. Okay.
And then Newman here in the UK is a digital men's health clinic. You may know Roman or Hims out in the US. So it's dealing with taboo men's health issues like erectile dysfunction and hair
I have
loss.
no clue. I'll have to look that up later.
A woman's arm as well. They help with everything that has to do with menopause, etc.
Okay.
So anyway, did that. And then I had the opportunity to move and work, in Web3 and crypto in early 2021. And for me, the opportunity cost of not working in the space was too high. And it was a good time for me to leave. Now, what I found really challenging is that every other business I was involved in, I had kind of the peer model to look at and say, this is how they're doing it. Can copy them completely or kind of adapt what they're doing, but at least you have a playbook. And now the playbook is being written. There is no, standard best practice.
I know, that is exciting.
It's more challenging, but it allows you to be more creative and try new things. And so, that's kind of where I'm at now is working full time in this. And how did I get into specifically this project? Well, it's because my brother is one of the founders, and he was already working in crypto. He's the founder of Voyager, and he he kind of said, we want to launch this thing with a group of other founders. Do you want to jump on and kind of lead the project? And I've always been exposed to art through my sister, who's an art advisor.
I love that. I always love when these things happen in families.
Yeah, and then obviously I was kind of invested in crypto since I would say 2017.
Okay.
Around then, and so I was familiar with it, but not at all well versed, right?
Okay.
So, well, now here I am.
Okay, I like it. I always get excited when I hear people talk about family. I have a very big family, and I like for us when we kind of, our interests meld and we can work together. That's super cool. And I think it's kind of interesting. We've had people on who have talked about, who've come more for the technological standpoint, other people who don't touch technology at all, but they're more of like community engagers and people who are into marketing. And so it sounds like you are, you're coming from the perspective of being an entrepreneur and maybe liking to run. Do you have somebody else, or is that something that you like running operations for a business?
For me, the most interesting part of the entrepreneurial journey is the beginning, where you have to set everything up, and tackle all the problems of setting up a business from the beginning and getting your first customers and speaking to them and figuring out basically that product market fit. Um, and sometimes some businesses take, they never find product market fit, and sometimes it takes longer, and sometimes people hit the mark off the bat.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, let's talk more about particle collection. So you said you got exposed more into fine art from your sister. Who, I guess, got the like who came up with the idea of like, dang, I want to be able to own Mona Lisa. I just say Mona Lisa just because we all know
Yeah,
who
yeah,
that is.
yeah.
Or I want to own a Basquiat, and how do we use this new blockchain technology so that more people can have ownership? Like who had that conversation?
So one of the founders of Particle is called Loïc Gouzer, and he used to be the chairman of post-war and contemporary art at Christie's. He's kind of regarded as the tastemaker in the art world. So he, organized and a bunch of different sales for Christie's and Sotheby's as well previously to that. And he was the one who, I think he holds the record for the most expensive works of art sold at auction, like the top five. You may
Wow,
remember
that's
that
pretty
Da
cool.
Vinci that sold for $450 million
I,
recently.
I have to
Um,
admit, I'm really dumb about fine art. That's
no,
why the
okay,
idea of centralizing it and getting it into the hands of more people might care. Like I'm more of into architecture as opposed to, and I don't know, I think it's
okay.
because architecture in a way is a lot more, it's just there. Like I don't have to
It's
always go
more
to a
accessible,
museum.
yeah. And
Yeah, it's more
so that's the
accessible.
main point. Exactly. So he was saying when he was young and he couldn't afford, you know, any works of art, he would take these catalogs of these art sales or auction sales and cut them up and just create his own fantasy collection, right? And this is what he'd have in his house.
That's super
And
cute.
so he was saying, what now with the blockchain and with NFTs, you're able to get people to truly own something. So your token belongs to you. No one can take it away from you. It's yours. That's the premise of the NFT. And then you have, it's open, tradable, etc. And so enabling fractional ownership of high value assets or art in our case, um, is something that, he said was the right application, or one of the application that would, an NFTs would be applicable to. And what is interesting is that the you said it's art as an you kind of don't understand, or you're not it's not, it doesn't feel, it feels out of reach to you, and so did it to me. If you wanted to get into collecting art, right now, for example, where do you start? Some people go to the affordable art fair. Some people are there on holiday and they, stumble on someone selling some art and they, oh, I like that.
Yeah.
But they're, the way that I think about it is kind of four pillars to the art experience, or let's call the fine art experience. And then fine art, many definitions. But for me, there's the art is number one, always art first. You can never also replace actually being in front of the physical. So Mona Lisa, for example, you can see it online, but actually going to the Louvre and seeing it.
True story. When I saw it in real life, I was like, this is
Yeah,
it?
but it makes you feel something,
Really?
right?
It does, but it also was so small, and I expected it to
It's
be
small.
bigger. And I was like, really?
Yeah, it is small. But so there's the art, and and then you have the second thing is knowledge, right? So people go to art history university degrees, and that's how they get, but it's time consuming, costly, etc. And so in this art world, everyone, it's based on accreditation as well, your status, if you want. And it's a very tight knit, less than 1% of the world have participated in that fine art world. So there's knowledge, but knowledge is also training your eye. How do you know what good art or high quality art is? And art is subjective, right? But for some reason, there is quite a large consensus on who are the great artists. So there must be some basis of knowledge of art training your eye. Then there's access, access to experts, artists, shows, access to works of art that are not exorbitantly priced, that have been sold multiple times. So getting to the source, access to advisors. That's another component of the fine art world. And the last one is ownership. And ownership is very important because there's this concept that ownership enhances the enjoyment of art. Um, and it's almost like a chemical reaction in your brain where if you and I are at a gallery or a museum and we're looking at a work of art, we can both appreciate it, enjoy it, understand it in our own ways, etc. But if you own that work of art, or you've loaned it to that museum, for instance, you will enjoy that much, that much more than me, and that makes all the difference. And that is the same reason why I may love Bored Apes, for example, and find them super cool, but I'm never gonna like that one specific Bored Ape as much as, whatever, Mr. X on Twitter who owns it. He's just like a massive fan. There's that connection that you have when you own something.
It's
Uh,
true. I think about the first time I ever bought like a piece of art, and like I literally just gave my cold hard earned money, like, and said, hey, I want that just because I like the way it makes me feel by looking at it. And there's definitely, um I mean, obviously there's something to say for art and purchasing art. And
yeah,
so and
and it
and
doesn't
and
matter how much
that
you
connects
spend.
you. No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
And
no
that
matter how much.
connection. And so I again, I think that this idea of fractionalization, and I want us to go a little bit more into that, like how does that work? Um, into fractionalization of ownership so that everybody can call themselves an owner. Or not everybody, but more people can call themselves an owner. It's not just one, mega billionaire who owns this one piece of art, that it starts to be able to touch a lot more people who are going in it and, like you said, owning a share of it. So let's talk a little bit more about fractionalization, because that's really
Yeah,
big in the Web3 world. People are talking about that more. I've heard
yeah.
it more in like like in terms of real estate, like the idea of being able to own a fractional share of real estate. So let's talk about that a bit more. Can you explain that, how fractionalization
Sure.
works?
So we call them particles, these specific plots of land on a painting, these NFTs, right? In ERC 721. So if you imagine the painting, 100 by 100 grid, so
Time's out.
10.
You're not allowed to talk jargon on this. I
Sorry.
say that because you said ERC2. I said, now I know
Oh,
what
yeah,
that
sorry.
means, but
My bad.
so
Yeah,
let's use the word
NFT.
Ethereum. Okay, go ahead.
So these particles are NFTs, and they represent ownership in the painting, but the specific part of the painting, right? So you have coordinate A1, for example, and that's your piece. You can own multiple pieces. But so this particleization process or fractionalization process is, I would say, even more of a um, legal one than a technical one, right? Because you need to how can you how can 10,000 people own one asset? How do they manage it? And there's still this physical one. And with real estate and with art, you need to store it, you need to maintain it, preserve, tour it, because the whole point, we don't want to put it in a warehouse somewhere. It has to be seen by people. So how does that all work? The way we've come up with it is essentially that we've set up the Particle Foundation. It's a 501c3. It's called a nonprofit entity, that basically the 10,000 people buy a painting. I'm kind of like explaining it from a zoomed out perspective. 10,000 people buy a painting, and they agree to loan that painting indefinitely to the foundation. Now, what does the foundation do? The foundation's mission is education and promotion and stewardship of fine art. And the more works of art are in the foundation's collection, the particle collection, the more weight that foundation has in the traditional art world, right? Because the bigger your collection is, the more you can go to museums and offer access to your members, the more you can get paintings or artworks that you can um, offer to the community, right? It's very difficult. I think what's something I might not be obvious is that you may have all the money in the world, but if you want to get desirable art, it's very difficult to get your hands on it. Someone who has art to sell will tell you, okay, but what does your collection look like? And you can say, well, I have $1 billion, but I just won the lottery and I don't have any art. Okay, so we can't really sell to you because you won't be useful to the artists, to the artist
Whoa,
foundation and the
that's
legacy.
deep. That's
So
deep.
you need to
Wait, so
build
then
your
that,
status in the art world, and that is impossible, almost very difficult for individuals. So collectively, what we're trying to do is build this community that
mhm.
is kind of like in a Trojan horse, which is the foundation that can enter into the fine art world and give access to this whole community via its umbrella of the foundation, if you
Okay,
want.
but I have to like say that you kind of just rocked my world. So I'm not, it doesn't matter how much money I make if I'm not deemed like, I don't know, acceptable to the art circles.
It's difficult, of course. You can throw. I'm sure
No, no,
it,
no. Be frank. Is that what, because
no, no, no,
that's
no.
what it sounds like.
Being frank,
Like,
if you're offering three times what a
yeah.
painting is worth, then
Okay.
they'll sell it to you, right?
Okay.
But you'd be silly to do that. If you're
Okay.
competing with someone who has already a collection or who knows uh, this gallerist and this curator and this advisor and who's plugged,
Mhm.
then
So
you have
you
no
have to
chance.
be plugged into the art world to own good art. That I didn't realize that. Like I guess in my head it was
Yeah,
just like
yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah,
have
yeah.
money, you just have access and that's what it's really about. Like I didn't know you have to have money on top of like
No, yeah, well,
people.
no, and you want to buy art correctly as well, right? You don't want to overpay. So yes, if you overpay, you can go at auction, right? Auction is
Okay.
different. It's just money talks, right? It's
Okay.
just you can just bid, and then
Okay.
eventually you'll win.
Okay.
But if you're
So
trying
this
to
is
buy,
like the equivalent to like real estate off market deals. Because really, like in real
yeah,
estate, you want the
exactly,
off
you got it,
market deal. Okay, I got you. Okay.
you
Okay,
got
I
it.
get it. My brain is catching up. So oh, that's really interesting. I know I couldn't get beyond that. I was like, wait, this is wow, you just told me something. You just told me a dirty secret. I sure or is that what they're called? Dirty secrets? Anyway. Um okay, so go back to what you're saying. I literally had to pause because I was like, wow, that's
I'll give you an
crazy.
example. Not even we're not talking about Basquiat's or Warhols or
Okay.
anything like that, right? I um, really love a few emerging artists, and most of them are women emerging artists because my sister is what she kind of is
Oh,
uh,
awesome.
specialized in, and she knows the gallery that represents those artists because you have to buy if artists just like musicians right are represented by a record label, they're represented by a gallery, so you need to go through the gallery to buy their works, and I said, I'd love to get some, a painting from this show that's there. They're for sale. I can see it says for sale. Oh, sorry. She comes back to me. She says, nah, there's a big waiting list, but it still says for sale. And actually, this waiting list is just a way to kind of create this whole hype. And I never got the paintings that I wanted. Eventually, because Charlotte has been collecting my sister for some time, who's actually the director of the foundation. Uh, I'm starting to manage to get
Wow.
um, some art, but it was difficult. And so, you know, even if
Wow, that's Web3 technology. You never know what happens. So, okay, I'm going to wait for our guest to come back on, but here's my quick note. I am rocked by how much about fine art world that I'm learning about right now. I feel like this is I had no clue that learning about decentralizing fine art ownership, which is all I cared about. I was like, oh, Web3. I'm like, and Harold is telling me the dirty secrets about how the art world works, and I'm this is fascinating to me. Go ahead. Sorry, go. Go ahead.
yeah. So anyway, I was saying, apologies. I was saying that I'm thanks to Charlotte and thanks to now me buying and going to these artist shows, etc. I'm starting to be able to get a little a little bit more clout in that small subset niche of emerging artists. And I mean, the art world is massive, right? There's a ton of artists out there and galleries. So
Absolutely.
fractionalizing these artworks, these major artworks, like I said, if the Particle Foundation, thanks to its community of patrons, let's say people who are buying particles, essentially enabling buying the art and building the collection, that foundation starts getting clout in the art world. The more amazing art it has in there, that means the more access to new art, emerging artists and established artists it gets, and it can give that access to our community of particle collectors. For example, we are doing a show at Art Basel in Miami in December with Phillips, and Phillips is a big auction house, one of the top 3 or 4, I think.
Okay.
And there's going to be, I think there's 10 or 14 emerging artists that are showing works, and then there's 5 and 10 kind of more established artists. And all the prices there are on primary. That means you're buying directly from the gallery. There's no markup. There's a markup from the gallery, but it hasn't been sold at auction or sold and resold. You're getting it straight from the source.
Okay.
We're giving first dibs, if you want, to the particle collectors if they want to buy any physical art, any of these works of art there. So not only has it been curated by a curator for an auction house and the curator of the Particle Foundation, but you're getting good art with potential, with a story that you can learn about, meet the artists, but also you're getting it at a price like if you were an art world insider, right? As an art world insider.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions that have come up in terms of how this particle collection works and the fraction. So we talked about the NFTs that particle offers. You have an NFT. That NFT is tied to a fraction of a particular art work. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So
Okay.
the first painting was a Banksy. And have you seen it, actually? No, you haven't. So
I've
it's
read
called
about Banksy.
You know Banksy, yeah. Street artist. Banksy is a street artist, unknown, anonymous, and very, very infamous or famous.
Yeah.
And
Didn't
the
he like
paint.
shred a piece of work? That's kind of what I remember him
Yeah,
about,
he did.
shredding it.
So this one is called Love is in the Air, and I'm sure you've
Oh
seen
yes,
it.
I know. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes,
It's the
absolutely.
protagonist that's throwing a bouquet of flowers instead of a Molotov cocktail. So it's a
Mhm.
beautiful image, actually, of like a
Mhm.
peaceful revolution.
Yeah.
So a particle represents one piece of that painting, correct?
Okay, got you. And then that NFT is essentially lent to I guess
Physical
I'm trying to
painting.
understand. Okay, so the physical painting is lent to the collection. So the NFT theoretically is like a license to the foundation. Something like that?
So this is what we're going to develop it into,
Okay.
right? Is there's going to be 2 separate things. There's going to be ownership in the paintings,
Okay.
NFTs, and then there's going to be a token that's going to be the governance of that foundation. Because since all of your art, let's say you own we only have one painting right now. It's the Banksy in the collection. Let's say there's 10 and you own particles of the 10. You should be controlling the foundation that it's loaned to as well. So that's you're going to be able to do that through through having this token that represents governance, or how you can
Okay.
direct the foundation.
So I know we talk about DAOs, and we'll get a little bit more into that.
Yeah.
So so for instance, most people, artists, you have a piece of art, the artist itself, you have your art, you will lend it to like a museum or something like that, and you usually receive like fees, like money for doing that. So
Not
how does
really.
that? Well, the artists I know, that's how they make money. They lend it, and then they get money for that essentially lease. I'll call it lease that the museum, or
Okay.
it could be an airport lease, like lease artwork, which is really
Yeah.
weird, right? So how does that work? Do people actually does the foundation, when the foundation is essentially leasing it, do they make money, and does that money
No.
get put down? Okay, I should say not
No.
put down. I was
No,
thinking
no.
trickle down. Okay.
No. There's first of all, there's a few, maybe it's a bit boring, but there's a bunch of regulatory issues doing that.
Okay.
But the generally, if you're talking about fine arts and being lent to museums,
Mm-hmm.
it is an honor if you want to have your art lent to a museum. Museums generally don't pay for that.
Okay.
Uh,
Didn't realize that.
I mean, I guess in public places, in lobbies, etc. I'm sure they do. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like
Right.
the
Like if you get in the
goal of
Louvre, it's like you're
art.
welcome. You're welcome. We chose you. You're welcome. You're not
Yeah,
going to change
and
that.
exactly. It gives you an artist CV is also where they were featured, right?
Okay.
So they were at this show in this museum, at this show in this gathering that gives them it's kind of the foundation of their work and recognition for their work. So you own pieces of this painting, and the painting, it needs to be somewhere. So
Okay.
it is legally, right? Someone needs to
Yes.
own the painting legally, and there's no structure. So the DAOs, um, you can have a DAO, like, which is a non-entity, can't own anything. You need to have, someone needs to own something. So I know in Wyoming, for example, they've done these new entities that are for DAOs, but the way we've structured it is through a foundation, this nonprofit that holds the physical painting, can do the contract with the insurer to actually insure the painting, can do the contract with a storage to store the painting when it's not being exhibited, pay for restoration if anything happens to it, right? And in return for doing all of this and having all these fees, right, because it's a costly endeavor to hold such expensive art, the foundation benefits from a portion of the royalties or the secondary fees that are collected whenever people trade these particles. So that goes to paying for insurance, etc.
Okay. Got you. Okay.
Yeah. So level two of the so level
Okay.
one
Got you.
is
All
I
right.
own a painting, and the decisions I can make with the painting are should we sell it or not, right?
Yes. Okay.
And
I'm following.
and then the level on top, which is we're building right now, is it's it's kind of custodized by the foundation, the painting. So we should also control the foundation. So we're putting in mechanics now so that the DAO, which is our
Yeah.
community,
The DAO will own the foundation.
and the foundation is kind of the meat
Or I should
suit.
say the DAO will run the foundation, but
Exactly.
not
Exactly.
own, but govern the
Yeah,
foundation.
no one actually owns a
Right.
foundation. There's
Right.
no share.
Exactly. Govern the foundation. Got you. Okay.
Exactly.
Woo, that's a lot.
Well, you see, this is so. This actually brings me to a very important point,
Okay.
which is that you're doing God's work by kind
Trying.
of onboarding people into Web3. You're telling me don't use technical terms. You're absolutely right, and it's kind of shedding a light on this. It's kind of complicated what we're doing, and it can be explained much more easily. So I'm just maybe too keen to explain the details, but but our audience, the people who bought particles, are completely non-crypto native. And we've seen that because when we did our drop in January, and yes, that fast moving NFT world was completely different almost a year ago. But it was a very difficult experience for people to buy who had never downloaded MetaMask, who had never bridged ETH, and
MetaMask is a wallet, y'all. Go ahead.
MetaMask as a wallet. Exactly. And so we need, and I think every project in the space, but us specifically, because we really cater to these art fans who finally have a way to buy fine art. Um, and we need to make it as a smooth and seamless experience as possible. You should be able to pay with your credit card. You shouldn't need to have a wallet that if you lose the keys to it, it's over and you're never going to find anything anymore. It needs to be very simple. And I have to be very transparent. We didn't do a good job of that during the sale of the particles of the Banksy, and that's what this whole year. And now we're building towards building a platform that allows for a very seamless experience to essentially onboard people into Web3. People should know. I think the the end goal should be you don't know that you're buying an NFT, but you have, and then you can experience it just like someone who knows that it's an NFT and knows all the details. But it doesn't matter. The experience, it has to be about, well, your product is the art, and governing a foundation, which is really cool to do and be involved in the art world. The
Yeah, I think a lot of people, a lot of people in Web3, and Web3 just being Web 3.0, the next generation, of the technology of the internet. And I think that goes back to the idea of like, a lot of times I usually ask, why Web3? Why not sort of using the existing technologies that are already out there? Why do we need this new technology? And I haven't gone to that question yet. But the reason why I say that is because, generally speaking, and a lot of people bring this up, does anybody really, a lot of people don't know about the technology of Web 2.0. Like, what does that really mean? All you care is that you get to use it and you know how to use it. And I think there is an amount of learning curve. I mean, just anytime you download a new app, you have to learn. Every time Apple changes models, you have to relearn everything. So people are already used to the idea of having to learn new technology. I think to a certain extent, there's an over focus of like assuming that people are not smart enough. Or I should say it's not smart enough, because I would say for me, a lot of times it's laziness. But people aren't motivated enough to deal with sort of the differences of what adopting this new technology means. I'm going to say again, it's a matter of, yeah, people don't like to step out of their comfort zone, but people do it all the time. Especially people who like the new iPhones. I can't stand change. I hate changing hardware because I hate having to adapt to like the new changes of how to cut and copy, or to like, you know, screenshot my phone. But anyway, the reason why I say that is, I think just the more they get used to it, the more they deal with this stuff, and they're motivated. Like for instance, because they want to own a Banksy, they want to own a Basquiat or whatever. Having the right motivation is really what's more, I think, going to be more powerful than this idea of needing to make things seamless, right? Like you will. I mean, in my opinion, that's my opinion. My opinion is the more people are creating applications people want to use, as like creating NFTs, for instance, that people want to own for whatever reason because the underlying asset they want to own. That's what really matters in my opinion, maybe. But as somebody who is absolutely lazy about technology, ironically, I know because I'm sitting here talking about Web3. But I think that, but that's
Yeah,
why I
I would
personally
agree with
want to talk about Web3. I want to talk about Web3 because I'm like, I am the person that you have to convince. And
you. Yeah, I agree
so
with you.
that's why. Go ahead.
I
Sorry.
agree with you. Of course, there's always going to be things that you have to do to interact with the blockchain.
Mhm.
I don't know if,
Like getting a wallet,
like
right?
getting a, well, you don't necessarily, someone Nifty Gateway, for example. Do you know that platform?
No, but I was just gonna think about it because, like, if you're like top, what do you call that? A lot of the, you're right. There are NFTs that the application essentially holds custody of your application of your
Exactly.
NFTs, so you don't actually need a wallet.
Exactly. And then that defeats the purpose of the whole Web3 decentralized. I own my assets and nobody can control them, right?
You
But
said it.
you can, that's a good way to get people into it. And then once they're more comfortable having a wallet, understand the security risks of doing X, Y, and Z, and they can withdraw their assets from that custodized wallet into their own self-custody wallet. There's ways to do that, and you're right. If someone is motivated, they'll do it. I mean, to open up an account with a crypto exchange or something like that, you need to go through a bunch of KYC. It's a long process, but I want to buy ETH. I got to do that. There's no other
Exactly.
choice. I have no other choice.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
when I say seamless, I mean instead of having to take a picture of my ID, send it, and do this and that, I can show it on the webcam and take a picture of my face, and I don't
Yeah,
know, say
yeah.
something, and then
No,
it'll
and
give me.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I just meant that I think, having more applications, real world applications of it
Yeah,
beyond just like, let's say, finance, okay, or decentralized finance, is so important to growing the space, because then you're going to have people bother to use it, to actually
totally,
use it. You know what I mean? So,
totally. And
so
really important is the communications, and that's, once again, I don't think we're doing a very good job of that, and we're working on it. But storytelling is so important right now. It's staking tokens, and getting people who are just coming into this like, whoa, this is like complete. It sounds like alien talk. So the guys at Proof with Moonbirds, which you may have heard of, a project there, they've just renamed these things to their NFT is an owl, a moonbird,
Good.
and instead staking it, which means like locking it up to earn something. Well, they just called it nesting. It's like nest your
That's
moonbird.
super cute. That's super
And you
cute.
can just
Hmm.
nest for a little while, and then you unlock a reward that you can claim instead of like you're getting a yield of X token that's has a weird name. No, you get a reward, and your reward is, I don't know, a pair of socks or something. Great.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why I
A
like
real
why you guys
world
call it particle. Particle. I think that's cute.
art.
I think that's cute. No, it's true because do you really like NFT? Oh my God. I mean, I literally hate it. Like, I know what it stands for and it drives me crazy. Non fungible token. Like, really, what does that mean to anybody? And like, I say this too because so much in the Web3 space is right now focused on developers. And I'm like, you guys could develop till you're blue in the face. If nobody wants to use it, it doesn't matter. And so many times they like, there's like side eye try to act like, oh, marketing isn't a big deal. It's like marketing's going to be what gets people to actually use your stuff. So both are important.
Yeah, no, for
So
sure.
anyway, particle cute. Sorry, I know we diverge, but it's important to diverge when we're talking about Web3. Like this is real life. These are like real world issues. real world of Web3 issues. There you go. Anyway, okay. So why Web3? Now I got to that question. Why Web3? Why blockchain? Why
So why?
NFTs?
Yeah. So the first thing is, for our specific application of fractionalized ownership, the big player in the space is a non-Web3 company called Masterworks. Maybe you've seen ads for them. They're all over the place. Basically, you buy shares in artworks. Okay. But the way that you do that, it's really the exercise is investment. I have cash, I diversify, I buy some stocks, I buy some real estate, I buy art, right? It's all about diversification of assets, investing. And you're buying shares, and then they decide, you're buying shares of a company that's bought this one artwork, so one company per artwork. They manage it, and then they say in 5 to 7 years or whenever it's a good time to sell, they'll sell and they'll give you the profits. Fully an investment exercise. We want it to be focused on the art, a collecting exercise. And when you own a share of a company, do you actually feel like you own it? Not really. You're just invested. You're like, I hope they do well because I can make some money. When you buy these NFTs, these non-fungible tokens, they are yours, right? If you lose them, you lost them. You can trade them openly. They are yours, and everything is, of course, on the blockchain, so fully open. But also, what it
Can I use
allows,
them as a profile pic?
well, you can, but they're not that nice for profile
I
pic.
know,
That's yeah. That's where everyone is. That's where the whole space is. Well, was looking at was PFPs, profile pictures, until recently, where it's like really digital art. I think now has picked back up. But what was I saying? Yes, the blockchain. What it allows you to do is to build tools or experiences online that can help communities manage something that they have in common, whether it is a project, whether it is a physical asset or a digital asset, like a wallet, for example. 10 people can easily share a bank account. Whereas, let's say without Web3, without the blockchain, you and me have we say, let's buy a painting together. Okay, cool. We can buy a painting together. That's fine. We'll trust each other. All right. We'll both send X amount of money to this person. They'll give us the painting, and we agree that 6 months of the year we'll have it at home. If we're gonna sell it, it's pretty easy for me to call you. I'll say, hey, should we sell? You'll say, yeah, let's do it, and we do it. Now, what happens when we have 10 people? How do we do that? We have to make it like we have to schedule a Zoom call. It's a nightmare. How do you do that? What if it's the 10,000 people, right? So with the blockchain, with Web3 tools built on top of the blockchain, you're able to and the tools aren't completely easy to use yet, and they haven't been developed yet, and that's what everybody's working on. But you're able to get groups of people to efficiently manage something together, chat to each other, work together. I mean, you have some whole businesses that were built and running and doing amazingly by people who've never met, never given their even their real name, right? But because it's a trustless ecosystem, they're able to do all of that, seamlessly.
Yeah, I'm a part of a DAO right now. Like somebody said, if you want to understand a DAO, the best way to understand a DAO is to join one. And so I've kind of been doing that, and it's kind of like so far I've experienced it's craziness, but people are getting stuff done, a lot done, as opposed to like if I've worked in corporations, and it's always so you try to get something done, but then it has to go through this level, and then this level has to talk to this level and this side, and it's so far it's just been like since there's not all of these like layers of hierarchy, it's just so much work is getting done. It's so productive. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone, I'm just saying the one that I happen to be a part of is been like, you see how it really allows for I guess more like decentralization of power, and with
Yeah.
that decentralization of who has to make a decision, so that more things can actually it increases productivity. Again, just my experience.
No, you're absolutely right. What's difficult is that I'm sure, I don't know. Question for you is that DAO that you're involved in, are they the people that are or the people in it? Do they know are they like very proficient at using Discord, and they're like quite active on Twitter, and they know how to use Clarity and all this kind of stuff, or how do they do their work?
Everything is really Discord. So it's like, oh my God, the Discord. And I can't stand Discord for this reason, because, obviously most places have like 50 channels, but like legit, they have like 50 channels, and every single one of the channels gets used, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not like where you're like, why do you have 50 channels? like the same two get used. Like this one, it's like, there's so much happening that they all get used, and they're using them to get stuff done. And it's interesting because and we could talk about this later, but it's like a legal guild, and it's because technically I'm a lawyer. But you don't have to be a lawyer to be part of this. But anyway, it's just it's really quite fascinating, because I've never seen people like truly fully use Discord for its capabilities. I mean, they run events, so chats, like weekly chats to talk about, they have study groups, if they need what they call like client work, like they are just on it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so it's intimidating, right, for someone coming in new.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's I think that's one of the downfalls of Discord. It is intimidating, and I haven't seen it. There's some things like project management tools, like that I used to use before, like Asana, for example. Now you have like Clarity or Jira for developers. Those are a good way to get a high level view of whatever's everyone working on. There's things that are to be done, in progress, in review, done, right? Like a Kanban board, and you just move tasks along and you assign it to people. But you have Discord as well, where people are chatting and doing work. It's really intimidating, and that's, I think, what we're also really looking at doing is a better onboarding experience, because right now you're just you're thrown into the Discord and you're like, whoa, where do I start? When do you guys meet every day? I don't even know.
Oh,
Where the
literally,
schedule
this is ongoing too, because all they were talking about is how do we make the onboarding process better. And like my suggestion was just like, can we start with a link tree? Like, I just needed one place I knew I could go to and at least like find like top level information, because yeah, the Discord, and I have another group right now trying to use Discord, by the way. I literally had to say, this is nice for conversations, but if we have real work, can we I personally like Trello. I'm very visual. So I was like, can we move this to Trello so action items are on Trello, because I can't read action items through all of this Discord. This is ridiculous. And so I think, like, when we talk about DAOs and decentralized autonomous organizations, who cares about what it's called? But we'll just call it Web3 based organizations. Web3 based corporations. I don't know what the heck to call them. I always come up with like what we call them. Here, a community led entity with no central authority with rules and writing code. All we care about is it's being run in Discord servers. That's the reality. Organizations being run through Discord servers. So yeah, I think people are still like working on trying to find like better ways of doing it, but oh my God, it is. But anyway, thank you, Harold. Do you feel like there's anything that we forgot to talk about in talking about particle collection or anything like that?
Have we forgotten anything?
I know, because we started to get into Discord, and like I've had this conversation many times where I was like, you cannot not talk about Web3 and not talk about Discord. Like,
No. Well, I'll say one thing is that I've been used to running tradition, like call it Web2 e-commerce companies, and that's and I think musicians, for example, in a parallel way, they do the same way, right? You work on something and then you release, and you hope that people like it or use your product. And the Web3 way is that actually the people that are using your product are stakeholders in what you're building, and you should be building in the open. And it's a very difficult mindset switch to do, to say, I'm going to hold all of our internal meetings, anybody can jump in, right? And we're doing that switch. We're doing them we're doing it first. We've done it first on Discord. Everybody can jump in. And actually, what you do see is that most people who join, they just want to listen in, right? And see what's going on. I want to see what these guys are working on. What can I expect? But then, you're talking about challenges that you have, things that you need to do. People put their hand up. Oh, I don't know. I can help you design this thing. I can do this for you. Cool. They'll do one thing, another thing. And then they can, start to find a role within your DAO or whatever you want to call it. And so, if anybody wants to collect a Banksy, that's your gateway basically into our whole ecosystem right now. Go to OpenSea, write particle genesis, so you can get one. You can join our Discord and talk to
that
people.
info on your website?
You can go on particlecollection.com. Exactly.
Can I find OpenSea, like the OpenSea link I need by going to particlecollection.com?
You can. That's
okay,
enough.
Great. All right, cool.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just it's a learning experience for all of us, but it's so much fun, and we're dealing with like a world that was closed off to everyone before, the fine art world, and you get some insights into it. Like you may have gotten a few today.
I did, and again, thank you so much. I think for me, what you just said that I thought was really clutch was building in the open, and I definitely think that is like part of what is revolutionary of this Web3 world, where just more people have more of a say-so. And like you said, doing it earlier on is part of the beauty of it. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
Thanks for
Thank you, Hera, for coming on. And if y'all ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. And always, comment. Thanks for watching.